Hello, and welcome to this next episode of The King Lincoln Show. I've been telling you the story of my shitty, tragic, but hopefully somewhat interesting life. And I told you about how I lived in a yoga ashram for a year and a half, and then how I lived in a Buddhist monastery for about half a year. And in the last episode, I was telling you about how when I left the Buddhist monastery, I came back into normal life and I was trying to integrate back into modern society again, and all my trials and tribulations to do with that. So, in this episode, I'm going to continue that story. And I want to continue first by telling you a bit more about my friend Cassie, and like kind of how we met and like our friendship and stuff. So I first met Cassie in the ashram, and we kind of like became friends and stuff. I met her and her friend Lucy, who was super beautiful. And Lucy started going out with this really cool guy, John, who I've also told you about. And that was a kind of little like, we were like a kind of little friend group type thing. But anyway, um, so Cassie was a cool person. She was American, and we were both, in our like early to mid 20s. I think maybe she was a bit younger than me. Um, and she had like a really nice body and everything, but she was a little bit goofy looking, in my opinion. Her teeth kind of stuck out a little bit. She had slightly goggly eyes, and she had red hair, and she used to have really long red hair apparently, but I never saw her with that. She had very short hair, like almost shaved short, like a boy when I knew her. And she was like, I liked being friends with her, but kind of like we were friends because I finally found someone who agreed to be my friend. And someone who somehow they were able to like navigate my awful social skills and stuff enough to be actually somehow be friends with me. And it was quite weird how it happened. But yeah, other than her, it was like really hard for me to actually make like a close friend, like a proper friend who is just like me and them hanging out. Um and to be fair, the ashram and the monastery, like it doesn't really lend itself to that. But even after that, that was like a really hard thing for me to do. Yeah. And she didn't become like a super close friend, but we would like hang out, like just her and me, like, on lots of occasions. We go to the beach, we go to like go to lunch, go out to eat, different stuff like that. But this is a really weird thing that I used to do like my whole life until nowadays. I don't do it anymore. I totally stopped doing this. But I used to be friends with girls and not try to fuck them. And like part of it, I think, was from growing up with sisters. I have three sisters who I grew up with, and just being used to being around girls and like in a non-sexual way. Obviously, when you're growing up with your sisters, you're not trying to fuck your sisters. And I didn't have any brothers, and I just felt like way more comfortable around girls. And I loved my mom, and I hated my dad. My dad was angry and scary. He was like a dickhead. So I think that formed the basis of it. But then when I was growing up, I was taught that I was brought up very religious by like religious fundamentalist kind of parents. And they basically taught me that sex before marriage is a sin and like it's a really serious sin you should never do. So until I was about like I can't remember how old I was, but already like in my 20s, um and I like questioned, or when I was 20, but then yeah, more properly a bit later on, a few years after that. Uh, it was only when I like broke down this like religion thing and like thought about it all for myself and dissected it for myself that I realized it was all bullshit. And I don't think sex before marriage is a sin or anything like that anymore. I don't believe in God or sin or any of that. But I think that was a big factor as well. And yeah, and then there was the thing of like when I was in the ashram, all the yoga and meditation and stuff kind of dampened down my libido, and it made me not really interested in girls and sex that much. And also being isolated from, that many girls, and like, there usually weren't that many like hot girls there or anything. And even when there were like some backpackers that had come through, they had to dress really conservatively and stuff like that. And yeah, you're just meditating a lot, being alone a lot, and like it doesn't lend itself to that either. And in the monastery, it was even more towards that way because to stay there, you have to stay under a vow of celibacy. And you basically just see the same like 5 to 10 people every day. And most of them are like wrinkly old Thai monks. So there's, there's no, like, there is no libido, or like your sex drive kind of just goes away to a large extent. But I should have mentioned first, actually, when I had all this crazy anxiety and paranoia and all these crazy mental problems, that suppressed my sex drive as well. I was always feeling like it was an emergency. Like even everyday life to me, I was still in a state of like as if an emergency is happening, as if someone's coming to kill me or some shit. Like I always felt this like huge level of anxiety and dread and stuff. And being stuck in your, I guess, like your sympathetic nervous system or whatever it is technically, it doesn't lend itself to you being relaxed and like getting attracted to someone and getting horny. So I didn't really have it then either. So there's all like you can see lined up one after the other, all these reasons where like I would just hang out with girls just as friends and stuff. And all these reasons why like I wasn't really running around trying to fuck everyone. And yeah, the monastery there was a vow of celibacy, and in the ashram there wasn't a vow, but they introduced us to this idea of brahmacharya, which is like um using like sexual control and like abstinence to like fuel meditation practice type thing, and like kind of redirect that energy type thing. So I was really interested in that idea as well. I kind of like semi subscribed to that, or I liked the idea at least. But anyway, coming back to Cassie, so that's a kind of background of like, yeah, I used to just be friends with girls. So she was probably the last girl that I ever was just friends with, and I didn't really try to fuck. And now I'm the exact opposite. I just try to fuck them and I don't want to be friends with them. I would never like spend time just like hanging out with a girl who I'm not trying to fuck, especially if I know she's fucking someone else or other people. Like, what the fuck kind of time investment is that? But that's what I was like. I don't know. Which do you think is better? I think I was more cooked in the head then, and my approach now makes more sense, but maybe you think the opposite. I don't know. But anyway, the funny thing about her was she referred to herself as like a pretty girl. Like she saw herself as a really like attractive girl. But I never said this to her, but I was like, I don't actually think you're that attractive. Like your friend Lucy, like wow, she is like fucking beautiful. I couldn't be her friend like in those days, but Cassie, you kind of look slightly goofy. You have slightly goggly eyes, slightly like sticking out teeth. you have like this short, like boy's haircut. That's part of why I can be friends with you. Um, I was friends with really beautiful girls, like like prior to that, like in like high school and stuff. But at this time, yeah, I wouldn't be able to just be Lucy's friend, for example. She was too beautiful when I was in my 20s, that is. But yeah, Cassie was okay. That's part of why I could do it because, she was slightly goofy looking. So I didn't really feel that like urge all the time. So that was one of the reasons as well. But yeah, so that was kind of awkward. And like I've described previously, she was like I liked her, but she was always exaggerating and like making herself and like stuff that she did and like stuff about her life, like talking it up to seem cooler than it actually was. It was a bit annoying, but no one's perfect. And God knows I had like heaps and heaps of like quirks and weirdnesses at that time as well. And I still do. Um, but yeah, so I already told you about how we met at the ashram and all that in like a previous episode, but a weird thing that happened that kind of cemented our friendship, or probably this is actually the reason we became friends and kept like in contact longer, was I'm really fuzzy on the timeline, but I think I must have visited this drumming place. You remember in the last episode I told you about this weird drumming place, little drumming school thing that I lived at after I left the monastery. Well, I must have visited that there at some time while I was still living in the ashram, and she was there, and I'd already met her at the ashram, so I already knew her. And I'll I'll tell you more about her like as we go on. But another weird thing she did was she would always sleep in bed with like another person, and she would sleep in bed with another guy. And she would just do it with all different guys. And I don't know if it was like she didn't like sleeping alone or something. But yeah, she wouldn't be fucking them or anything. She would just sleep in bed with like different guys. It was really weird. And she did that with me. She like slept in my bed. Um Actually, when she came to the ashram, she slept in my bed as well. And I like at that time I was really weird about girls, and I like oh, she said I was climbing the wall. Like I was like, trying to like get away from her. um as if I was like scared of her or freaked out. She was like, "Gee, you didn't need to climb the wall." But that's how I was kind of about girls at that time. I don't know. At certain times, I was very mixed up. I'm a big contradiction. But anyway, at the drumming place, yeah, she slept in my bed, and I still don't really know why, but for some reason, I just started crying. I think it was like the first time in a long time, like I'd been like close to someone, or like physically close to someone, or like had someone like touching me or hugging me or something. And I must have felt like, I don't know, kind of safe, or like, I don't know. I just had kind of like an emotional like outburst type thing. And I just started crying. And she was just like hugging me and being like, "Oh, it's okay. You're so safe with me," like type thing. I remember she said that, whatever that means. And yeah, I was just crying. And I still don't really know why. I guess I had a pent up emotion or something. It's really weird. But then, yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but we never really talked about that at length. And I don't know why I did that. I just randomly started crying. But yeah, that is actually kind of gay when you think about it. But anyway, yeah, then we became friends. And she was a funny person. She actually was a slut. She slept around a lot, like she just like, yeah, slept with lots of random guys. And it wasn't like she was, I guess she was kind of super horny, but also she was a real extrovert. Like she was a real people person, and she just liked like being around different people and kind of like getting to know different people, and she really fed off people. Like the exact opposite to me. I'm a total introvert. I don't like people. I don't like being around people. I really struggle with it. But yeah, it was weird because she was such a slut, and I'm not using that as a slur. It's just like she slept around a lot. There's nothing, bad about that. But I didn't really try to sleep with her, even though like she would sleep like in my bed at this drumming place and at other times. Only kind of once she was sleeping in my bed and I actually started getting horny off her being there, and I kind of like hugged her from behind, and she like just wanted to go to sleep. So she like squeezed me. She was like that, gave me like a hug, and then she just like went to sleep. And like that was the closest I ever got to actually like hitting on her. And that didn't really work. I think like I don't even know if she knew like that I was feeling horny. I think she was just annoyed, like she wanted to go to sleep. And then she went after that night, she went and slept in some other guy's bed. But she didn't fuck him either. She just slept in his bed. But she did go and like, yeah, she would fuck all sorts of different guys and stuff. She slept around a lot. And it's so weird to me now that it's like, okay, you're hanging out with this like decent looking girl with like a really good body who sleeps around a lot and is really sexually free, and you never had sex with her, and you just go and be a friend and have like, go to lunch and get like noodle soup and like go to the beach and stuff, but you never fucked her. Like what are you doing? Like what is wrong with you? You were living totally backwards. But that's how I was at that time. I was so fucking weird. And we would go to the beach and stuff, and she would wear this like full on like G-string bathing suit. It was like a one-piece bathing suit, but it had like a G-string. And it's actually really normal nowadays for girls to wear like G-strings at the beach and just have their ass cheeks hanging out. But this was a few years ago, and I think it was a little bit less normal than now. And people would actually be like looking at her and stuff. Um, but yeah, I think it's like pretty average now. Like just their ass cheeks everywhere on the beach is like not a big deal at all. But yeah. So yeah, and like I explained, her and a bunch of her friends were all strippers at this like stripper place where really rich like businessmen go and stuff. And yeah, she was a stripper there. Lucy was a stripper there. And then there was at least two more of their friends. One really skinny girl and one kind of actually fat girl. Who I was like, ugh, who wants to see you as a stripper? But whatever. Somehow they did that. And yeah, she hardly had to work at all. Just a few evenings a week she would go and do this stripper thing, and then she'd just like do whatever she wanted for the rest of the time. And it was funny, one of the skinny girl who worked as a stripper, she also did nude yoga. Like people could hire her for private sessions of nude yoga. And I was like, "Oh, do you really get any like clients for that?" And she's like, "Yeah, I've had a few guys do it." I'm like, "Yeah, they're really there for the yoga." That's pretty funny, but yeah. But yeah, and I'm not in contact with Cassie anymore. Like, once I left like this place and she like moved on to, don't know where she went, if she went back to America or what. Um yeah, I think she ended up going back to school, like going back to college or university. I can't remember if it was in Australia or America. I think maybe actually Australia, but a different part of Australia. And she was studying she actually was studying, I think, the neuroscience of meditation. She was doing like neuroscience stuff, like studying like, yeah, what happens like in the brain when you meditate and stuff, which is pretty fucking cool area of study. So she went to do like further study, but she also became an actual prostitute. So she went from being a stripper to actually being like an escort or a prostitute and like having sex with people for money. But like it wasn't in a bad way, like she had to do that or something. Like it wasn't like she was like a crack addict or something. That suited her personality like perfectly. She loved like that kind of stuff. She loved meeting new people. Yeah, you meet a lot of new people. She loved guys. She loved like human connection and stuff. And she loved sex. She had like a really high sex drive. So it is completely bonkers to me now that I was hanging out with this person and I never fucked her. But that's just how I was in those days. I didn't really even want to. It was so fucking strange. Like my brain was just working differently in those days. So yeah, that's a bit about my friend that I used to have, and yeah, she was an interesting person, and I'll talk a bit more about her a bit later. So now I'll tell you about the first proper job I had after leaving the like getting out of the ashram and the monastery. I picked fruit for a bit, like I picked avocados and stuff with John and some other backpackers, but yeah, the first job I got was as a kitchen hand in a shitty restaurant near the beach. It was like a kind of Greek restaurant and it really sucked and it was usually really quiet except like on the weekends in summer because yeah, it wasn't very good. Um and yeah, it was run by a big fat Greek guy and there were two main other guys who worked there like with me. One was this guy, he was like a real stoner, like he was a young guy, probably like, I don't know, 18, 19 or something. Yeah, he was a real stoner, just kind of like real lazy and dopey, skinny guy. And then there was another guy, um, we'll call him, I guess, Mike. And he was an interesting guy. Like he had actually got convicted. Like this was kind of I met some kind of like bad characters, I guess. He got convicted for selling drugs. I think he was selling party drugs like ecstasy and stuff. Somehow the cops figured it out or whatever, and they raided his house. So I'm pretty sure he was still living with his parents. Like it was a young guy, maybe like 20 or something. And the cops raided his house and like yeah, found his drugs, and he got convicted of I'm not sure exactly what it was, but possession and intent to sell or something like that. But he didn't actually get put like in jail or prison or whatever. I think he got some kind of probation or something. And apparently, like when he was actually in court, the judge and everything, like he said they could see how sorry he was. Like he really showed a lot of remorse. And yeah, he said he actually really was like sorry. So he must have got some kind of probation or something, but I think he had to drop out of school or maybe he got kicked out of school or something. I can't remember what he was studying. But yeah, so he was just working there and later he did actually go back to university to study something and kind of like get his life back on track. So that was good. But he was a real like ADD guy. Like he was like a real ADHD guy and um like I remember I was like a bit early to work one day and he and this other guy, um, I guess we'll just call James. So James and Mike were like in there and like Mike was just like eating like everything, just like cooking shit and eating it. And he looked at me and he was like just really unapologetic. And he was like, yes, I come here and eat stuff. I'm like, all right. I'm not going to tell anyone. It's all good. Like, because I don't really care either way. But yeah, so he was. I'll be honest, he was a kind of like ugly guy, like kind of weird looking guy. Not disgustingly ugly, but a kind of awkward looking guy. Well, he was good. He was good with girls. Like he knew how to talk to girls and stuff, and he would fuck quite a few different girls. Um, and he was really like against emotions. Like I remember this one time he was telling a story like he fucked this girl, and then he was like, oh, she was getting all clingy, she was getting all emotional, and then he called James, the other guy who worked there, to no, sorry, he texted James to call him to be like, oh, you got to come into work, like to pretend that he had to come into work so he could get away from this emotional, like clingy girl who he had just had sex with. It's like, oh, I gotta go. That's what he was like. But he was actually like a really nice guy. Both of them were nice guys, like overall. And he was a really nice guy because I was a very different kind of person at that time. And I was a really weird person. So, like, when we were on break, or if I like got there early, or like, we were hanging out a bit, like after the shift or whatever, or just during work, like, I would just, because I was fresh out of like a monastery and I was still meditating for an hour every day or more and different stuff like this. I was all into this like self-inquiry type stuff. I would just like be sitting like so like peacefully and like quietly and stuff. And I knew nothing about the stuff he was into, like, picking up girls and fucking them and like stealing food and selling drugs and whatever else. But he was really nice with me. Like, he would just chat to me. He wouldn't like, if I said something that was really different to what he thought, he wouldn't make fun of me or anything. He was just really cool with me and like, just in a friendly way took a bit of interest in me and wasn't like judging of me from being a really different kind of person than him or anything. So, even like I think he really had probably like really serious ADHD or something, they'd say these days. Like even people with like problems and issues and stuff, you can find some really like cool people that are really like cool overall, like nice people. But yeah. So yeah, that was a really crappy restaurant and I just worked there like washing dishes and doing like prep stuff and helping out. Yeah, it didn't even have any proper chefs. Like that James guy would like work the grill type thing, and yeah, it wasn't really a proper restaurant. Um, but yeah, and there was one kind of slut waitress who came there, who was working there. She had like a big fat ass, and she let both those guys fuck her. First, she fucked Mike, and then she fucked James. Um, if I was any good with girls, she probably would have fucked me too, but I wasn't. Not at that time anyway. So yeah. So yeah, I worked there. It was a crappy restaurant. I guess not really that much more to say about that. So then, and I just got that job just from seeing a sign in the window and applying. And then I think I saw, again, just a sign like on a notice board or something. It was for a flower farm. And yeah, that was the next job I did. I had both jobs at the same time, and then the flower farm kind of took over, so I quit the restaurant. But I went to work on a flower farm, and people have said that that sounds kind of like magical and wonderful. It really wasn't. It was like back-breaking work. So basically, what it was is like there's a big, what do you even call it? Just a big expanse of land, just like with grass and stuff. But there's lots of sections of just like big things of flowers like planted, and they have like covers over them, like canopies over them. Um, and like each one isn't like a huge field, but it's like I don't know. I don't know distances, but maybe like 100 meters by 100 meters of like one type of flowers, and then there's a gap, like where like a truck can drive past, and then there's another thing with a canopy over it of flowers, and just yeah, lots of these like lots of flowers, and it was run by one kind of like angry, like grouchy guy who hated his life because his life was pretty like shit running this flower farm, and his wife and also their parents who no well they were a husband and wife, and then like one of them, I think it's the guy's parents, kind of like bequeathed it to them or whatever, and they were still like living there and helping out. And yeah, I would just like pick flowers, basically like pick flowers and like put them in bundles, and then we put them in this like giant van, and like at the end of the day we'd go like take them all to this shed, and we'd have to like put them in like plastic sleeves, like group each one in like a particular amount, and like put them in plastic sleeves. And some of them were really big, like they had small flowers, but they also had big flowers, so like when you would pick them, you'd have like a whole big bunch of them in your arm, like with really long like stems, and they'd be really heavy type thing. And it was back-breaking work having to like stay like bended down with the secateurs, like to chop them at the right level, like, and there's like wires and stuff that are like holding them up, and you gotta kind of get it right. And yeah, you just bent over like all day, and it's just fucking back-breaking work. And yeah, sometimes like we have to do it in like wet weather. The flowers are kind of undercover, like under a canopy, so you wouldn't be wet, like you wouldn't just be in the rain all day, but you would get wet. And I also helped like planting, so like actually planting the flowers, and you get so fucking dirty. And again, it was back-breaking work, like just like bending to like yeah, put the little seedlings in, and also weeding, like weeding the plots of like soil to be ready to be like planted or whatever. Man, it was like really hard labor. Um, but what I liked about it was like they didn't like for the most part they didn't listen to the radio, the music or anything. It was just like quiet. And I would just do like self-inquiry. I would just do the work, but I'd be like watching my mind, like trying to, yeah, practice self-inquiry, be present, be mindful, like investigate my mind type thing. And even though my back was hurting and I was like tired and stuff and it kind of sucked, it was just hours. I treated it as like hours of meditation practice. So it was good from that perspective. But also I really sucked at it. Like I tried to drive the van and I like would get it stuck in a fucking hole, and then have to get like a tractor and like pull it out. I did it like multiple times, and I was like, sorry. And another time I tried to drive it, and I like crashed it into like a tree and broke like one of the tail lights. And they're like, that costs $600, don't you? I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm retarded. And yeah, I was just not good at it. And they were always like, you need to pick faster, you need to pick faster. I'm like, I'm trying. This is as fast as I can go. So yeah, I was so retarded in so many ways, and I still am. Like, ugh, so terrible. And there were these two guys that also worked there, but they did different kind of work. They did a lot more planting, and they did kind of more like not picking, but just different stuff, like more like handyman stuff or whatever, proper farmer stuff. I don't really know, but they were just other laborers who worked there, and they were like country folk or whatever, and real like kind of macho men. There's one skinny guy and one fat guy, and they were both like fairly young, like probably 20s, like I was or whatever. and we really didn't get along. So, like, um, yeah, people from there, like people from around there, they know what the ashram is, and if you say you're from the ashram or you used to live in the ashram, they automatically think that you're a freak, and they have a point. So, yeah, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I used to live in this, like, yoga center thing." And they're like, "The ashram?" And I'm like, yeah." And they're like, "Oh my god." Automatically thought I was a freak. And they would talk about, like, sex and stuff, like, just in a normal, like, manly way. And yeah, I kinda told them how I was really into this, like, abstinence, celibacy, like, brahmacharya stuff. Like, I just come out of the monastery where I was under a vow of celibacy and all this stuff. And I told them how, like, I wasn't really into sex and I didn't wanna have sex and I thought it was, like, overrated. Um, and, like, I didn't even, like, jack off or anything, which was true at that time. And they just thought I was the biggest fucking freak. And, whenever I would try to converse with them, it would just turn into, like, really not a good conversation. Like, I just couldn't, like, we just clashed. Like, I couldn't get along with them. They thought I was a total weirdo and yeah, I just couldn't do it. So I stopped, like, I stopped eating lunch, like, in the lunchroom where they were. I'd find another random, like, place to eat and to have a break. Like, I'd sit in my car or, like, later there was this, Thai woman, just this, like, Thai woman in, like, about her 40s or something, and she, like, picked flowers with me. She had, like, a little house, like, on the property where her and her husband lived. Her husband was a white guy who she hated, by the way, because, like, she thought she was coming to Australia, like, marrying, like, a rich guy, but he ended up not being having very much money, and she had to pick flowers for a living, so she fucking hated him, and he was old and gross. But anyway, yeah, I'd sit on her porch and, like, just avoid these guys because I just couldn't seem to get along with them. It was bad. And, one time there was some kind of terrorist attack, in Australia that was in the news, and I heard about it, and, everyone heard about it, and there was some kind of misunderstanding where the the wife, like, the woman who was, like, part of this, um, flower farm, and she always, like, picked flowers with me and stuff, like, I had already heard about the terrorist attack, so when she, like, reiterated about it, I wasn't shocked, because 'cause I'd already heard about it, but she didn't know I'd already heard about it, and, like, she said something that was, like, about, being scared or, like, "Wouldn't be scared, like, you might die," or something, and I just kinda, like, smiled and, like, nodded type thing, and like, she misinterpreted it and thought that I was a fucking psycho, and for, like, days, she was really quiet. And I would, like, say something to her and she would, like, just give, like, a one-word answer or something. And then eventually she was like one day she was just she, like, burst out, like, with in a way you can, like, tell she's been thinking about it for ages. She's like, "I have to ask you about, like, this thing. When there was the terrorist attack, like, you just smiled, blah, blah, blah." And I was just like, "Oh, well, you were talking about being scared of death." And I was just like, I think, like, you don't need to be scared of death and, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, being scared of death is silly and something like that. And she was like, "Oh, okay." She thought I was on the psychopath's side. Well, that's what she said, this terrorist. She thought I was siding with the terrorist, like I thought it was a good thing or something. But I was just, like, kind of, like, smirking because she was talking about, like, fear of death. And at that time, I kind of thought that I'd worked through, like, the fear of death, like, or something like that. I was fucked in the head. But anyway, so yeah. And, that made those two guys who I didn't eat lunch with anymore think I was even more of a psycho. They started calling me Ivan Milat, who is like a Australian like murderer guy. And yeah, one time they did this thing where like I came into the room and they just put a bullet on the table. And I was like, well, what's that? And I was just, I don't know, they weren't going to do anything, but I think they actually just happened to find the bullet and it was like an opportunistic thing, not like a planned like threat. But yeah, they just like put this bullet on the table and they were just like looking at me. I was like, okay. But yeah, it was just such a mismatch. That me and that whole place was such a mismatch. But yeah, and like early on, before I had any long sleeve shirts to wear there, I would just wear a t-shirt and I'd have to like, pick the flowers and hold them in the crook of my arm. And like the flowers like gave me this like crazy rash like all over my arms, like where they were laying. And like that was when I was still working at the crappy restaurant. And Mike, that guy from the restaurant is like, Jesus, those flowers aren't doing you any favors, mate. And I was like, yeah, I know. But once I got long sleeve shirts, I was fine. But yeah, so that was the other job that I did, and it really fucking sucked, and I wasn't even good at it. um, yeah. So yeah, and so what I was really trying to do was just become a normal person and have a job and like have a place that I live, and that's it, just a normal regular person. And I was still really obsessed with like meditation and self-inquiry and stuff, and I just wanted to put a lot of time and energy into that. And I Am That, the book by Nisargadatta Maharaj, became my all-time favorite book, and it still is. And I would just read it over and over again. Like every day I would read some until I finished the book. And when I finished the book, I would just start it again. I was always reading it, and I was always like, yeah, meditating and like doing self-inquiry and stuff. But my social skills were really terrible and my life skills were really terrible. So those were the only jobs I could really get. Like I wasn't, much good at that. Like I just found those jobs and just kept them, and I wasn't even good at them. And I tried to get my own place. So I was living in that drumming place, that weird little drumming school place. And then I tried to get my own place. And like I went to a few viewings, and at some of them, the people clearly thought I was a freak because, I was just like weird. I gave off a weird vibe and stuff. And it was really embarrassing. And then I answered this one ad, and it was like I went to see this place, and it was just this one guy in probably like his like early to mid 30s or something, living in this like 2-bedroom flat in a kind of really shitty like part of town. But I was really bad at assessing even like, is this a shit place or like not? Like I was just really clueless. Um, and yeah, I had this weird idea from like, self-inquiry is supposed to be like, like happiness is like an internal thing. Like, peace and happiness is like internal. So I thought, well, my environment doesn't matter. So, but I was incredibly wrong about that. Like, your environment is incredibly important. Like, your environment, like, dictates heaps of your behavior, dictates your mental state to a huge degree, and has a huge influence over you. And I was just, I had that fucked up in my mind. So, yeah, this guy kind of got me to sign up on the spot. He was desperate for like a housemate because he was like having trouble paying rent. He was just like, "So, are you keen? Do you want to stay?" And I was like, all right." I didn't even think about it properly. Like, none of my decisions in those days were any good. They were all just like random. They didn't have good thought processes behind them. So yeah, I stopped living at the drumming place, although I still, went back to hang out with those guys and like, yeah, hang out with those people. But yeah, I moved out of there and I moved to this flat, and this guy was just like a worker in some kind of like factory type place, just in a shitty part of town, like, within driving distance from this like drumming place. And he was like a total alcoholic. He would get like this really cheap, like the most awful, like generic brand beer from like Aldi. Like that was all he could afford. And he just get slabs of it and just like drink it all. He was like a total alcoholic. And he had like a retarded son, not literally retarded, but like a kind of like really fucking dopey son who'd come sometimes. And he was just like, and this guy who I was like housemates with, he was just really like stupid, just really unintelligent and like really kind of like mopey and lonely. And he would like try to meet girls and stuff. And he'd bring over these women who were just like so fucking gross. Like, just like, he was like probably 30s and he was very weathered looking and kind of, not fat, but just kind of like flabby, and he just worked in a factory and stuff. Like, but they were even worse than him. They were just like old and gross and they were just really gross. And he was really like needy and lonely and like really wanted like a relationship, but like yeah, he couldn't seem to keep even these like gross women. I know I'm talking shit. It's not like I was great with women, but I'm just trying to describe how it was. Um, and he did a lot of like retarded and inconsiderate things. So one time he was gonna get one of these women to move in, and I came home and like she had all her stuff, like redecorated the house, like all these like candles and like fabric over everything, and like the house, like the little flat was only a 2-bedroom flat, looked totally different. And I was like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, so and so is gonna move in." And I was just like, "What?" And I was all like freaking out because it was a tiny place as it was, like just with two of us there, and now there's gonna be some like bitch living there as well, and like what was it gonna be like? And he was like, "Is that okay?" Like, and I was really bad also in these days for at like sticking up for myself or like speaking up for myself type thing. So I didn't really say properly what the real case of things was. I only kind of said it. Like I kind of didn't say it really assertively, but it's like, no, it's not okay. Like I agreed to, stay here and like pay rent and live like you and me in this 2-bedroom flat. You having a whole other person like moving in here totally changes everything. Like that's different to the agreement. But he was like, "Well, it was my place to begin with." I'm like, "It doesn't matter. You can't just like change everything, like make it different to what we agreed to. If I had known there's going to be two other people living here, like one girl and one guy in this tiny little place, I wouldn't have said yes to living here, would I? And paying this much rent and all that." So yeah, he would do stuff like that, and he would be really noisy, like him and sometimes his son, and like these gross women that he'd bring over. It wasn't like he'd bring a lot of women. It's like he'd find one, try to get her to go out with him, and then, she wouldn't like him after a while. Then he'd find a different one eventually. Like Wasn't like he was bringing a string of like heaps of them over, but yeah, and they were all gross and ugly and drug fucked. And yeah, they would be really loud, and I'd be like, "Can you guys keep it down?" And he'd be like, "Just put a towel under your door." I'm like, "A fucking towel under my door doesn't fucking do anything. It's a fucking towel. This place is tiny. I can hear your music blaring and you guys carrying on and shit." Oh, it's actually really awful remembering this because this is not even like a bad part of my life that is interesting. It's just like shit, like having like having all the mental problems and stuff is really shit as well, but at least that makes like at least that's kind of interesting in a way. This isn't even interesting, it just fucking sucks. So I might make this section kind of short, but anyway, yeah. He was just awful and one time he had this girl over and she just like burst into my room and she's like, "Hey, what you doing?" I'm like, I'm reading. Can you like leave me alone?" And then uh had all these awful people over. And one time he would get really, really drunk. And one time I came home and he was really drunk and he like passed out in his room. And I went to the toilet and he had pissed all over the fucking like toilet room. Like he tried to piss, but the toilet lid, like not just the toilet seat, the actual lid was down and he was so drunk he just tried to piss in the closed toilet and there was piss everywhere. And I woke him up. I used to also wake him up because he would snore really loud. I'm like, "You're fucking snoring." But I woke him up. I'm like, "You pissed fucking everywhere, cunt." It was so bad. And I wasn't assertive in those like times. And obviously obviously I should have just moved out, but that's how bad my life skills were. Like trying to find a new place to rent. I mean, that can be a challenge for anyone. And this was before the rental crisis in Australia, but like that kind of stuff, getting a new job, meeting a new bunch of people, moving to a new place, like getting a new place to rent, all this adulting stuff, like all these life skills where I was just so fucking shit at all of it. I was just pathetically bad at all of it. It was just so hard for me and like so overwhelming for me. Um, yeah, I was just so lacking in social skills and life skills. So I just stayed here. I just stayed there even though I should have left. But yeah, I don't even want to talk about that shit anymore. So that's enough about that. I did have a few more little like adventures and stuff. Like I'd hang out with Cassie and Lucy and some of the friends I'd made. And Cassie would get naked sometimes as well. Like I remember this one time, her and Lucy and John and some other people, we all went to this little cabin. It was like a cabin in the woods. And someone was living there and they were like showing us their little cabin that they were like living for a while. Maybe it was like an Airbnb thing or something. I can't remember who actually lived there though. Maybe John, but I'm not sure. But anyway, we went there and we're like hanging out there and like having dinner there and um yeah, they had like this like tub, like a big it was effectively like a bathtub, but it was a huge like kind of steel tub thing and they heated it up actually with fire. Like it was outside this cabin kind of like in the woods. And they heated it up like with fire from underneath like to make the water really hot. And yeah, Cassie got naked to get in there and so did Lucy actually. So that was, I mean, at least I got to see them naked and I got to see Lucy, like the really beautiful girl, naked. Um, but yeah, I never actually got to do anything with them. But um, the funny thing is, Lucy actually got really fat. She still had such a beautiful face. Like in terms of face, she was still one of the most like beautiful girls I've ever seen, and she still retained that. like when she got fat, but she got really fat, and she actually used to wear. She started wearing like a momo because she was like uncomfortably fat. I don't know what size she would have gotten to, but she got from normal size to like pretty fat, like pretty fucking chunky. But she would still wear like a bikini, and yeah, she still like got naked and got into that like tub thing, bathtub, outdoor bathtub thing. And she said like, "Oh yeah, I've learned that, that kind of Hollywood like body is just kind of like one kind of body." And I was like, "That is true, but you are fat." I mean, that's what I was thinking. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with being fat. I mean, it's bad for your health, but yeah. But I mean, to me, she still looked fucking sexy. But yeah, I did think it kind of relieved me to a certain extent that she got fat. Because it's like, I don't know how to explain that exactly. I didn't like her, like, oh, it wasn't like I was like in love with her in an emotional way. I just thought she was so beautiful. So when her and John got together and she didn't like me, I was sad about that. But then she got really fat and that made me feel a bit better. Uh, yeah, you get what I mean, right? Like, I don't need to explain, I don't know how to explain that, but that made me feel kind of better. So yeah, and there was also this other interesting girl who I met, and she lived in a van. No, it wasn't a van, it was a bus. She lived in this big bus that she decked out like it used to be a normal, some kind of bus, but she painted it and she made it into a little house. And she just used to like travel around and stuff. And she was quite pretty too. Like she was very pretty. And like she was like us, probably like early to mid 20s or whatever. And she was a really good painter. And she would get commissions to do like portraits of people, and they were fucking really good. They were really, really good. They were like really realistic. And I was like, holy shit. So I think she just lived off that. Like she would do one of those, and I mean, it's a lot of work. They pay her probably like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars, probably for one. And yeah, I think she just like lived in this fucking bus and like just did paintings. And yeah, but she had some kind of online presence as well, and I think she had some kind of mission. She explained it to me, and I kind of forget, but I think she wanted to start some kind of like communes or something. Like she wanted to start some kind of communities or communes or something, but I forget what the actual cause was, whether it was environmental or what. I can't remember. But yeah, she had some kind of big mission that she was on. But I mean, when I knew her, she didn't really seem to be doing anything toward it. She was just like hanging out, doing these paintings and living in a bus. But yeah, but she was very pretty also. And one time she and Cassie came back to my little flat, and this guy, my crappy housemate, he wasn't totally horrible. Like, he was a nice guy kind of underneath all his like issues and stuff. And yeah, I don't want to be a total shit talker. But yeah, one nice thing he did was he just let me like use the TV and everything, and the lounge room, and just kind of like went to his room and made himself scarce because I had these two girls over. But he didn't know how dickless I was at that time, and I was just treating them as friends basically. But Cassie got naked and like was in my bath. And the other girl, she just got into like her bathing suit and got in the bath. And I was just like in the bathroom there when they were having a bath. And then yeah, we watched movies and stuff, and then they slept in my room, and I was like reading a book to them. And yeah, I did actually seduce the other girl into spooning with me. but that's all I managed to do. That's as horny as I was, like, that's all that motivated me to do, and my skills and confidence with girls at that time, that's as much as I did. So, yeah. And my housemate was like, "Oh, it's such a missed opportunity, blah, blah, blah." But I was just like, "No, I just don't really care. Like, I don't really think like that. I'm not really into it that much," type thing. Which was true. Like, I just wasn't that motivated to get with girls and stuff. Not really. So, yeah. And you might remember I told you about how I have this weird psychological thing where I always have to have something, usually a creative outlet or discipline or whatever, that gives me some sense of identity. Like, I explained that at length in the last episode. And when I left the monastery and I was just, out in the world again, I didn't really have that. And like, I didn't feel a compulsion to have like something, some like mission or some project, some big project that gave me significance. It was like I was free, like all the meditation and self-inquiry and stuff. It had set me free from needing an identity. And that was like incredibly freeing and stuff. But unfortunately, that didn't last. And I don't know why. I guess just that being back in the world again and, being out of the monastery and all the different influences, whatever it was, I couldn't sustain that. And I've like the craving for some identity or to be special or something, it kind of came back. And I made a really dumb, like irrational decision, which you see a theme starting to come here. Like, I made a lot of those. I wanted to try to get back into acting. So my attempts to do that was so pathetic. It's so embarrassing. So I bought the like complete works of Shakespeare, and I would just like read from it. Like that, I would just read it. Like, I would just read it out loud and just for no reason or anything. And then I was living not I was living near a big city, but I was living in a town like that's kind of within driving distance to like an actual proper big city. But I was too retarded to find a way to move to the big city, like, which is where I actually should have been, especially if I wanted to, you know, get back into acting or something. So I couldn't find like anyone who like I wanted to find like some kind of voice teacher or like vocal coach for acting. And I would just stupidly like read read out of this like complete works of Shakespeare, and I couldn't find a vocal coach for acting, so I just started doing singing lessons instead. And it was just with some random local singing teacher. I think she worked at a school, like she was a music teacher at a school, and then she'd do like singing and music lessons like in the evenings, just from her home. And I started learning to sing, and she said I was a quick learner, but learning to sing is really hard and it takes a lot of time. And I didn't really want to learn to sing per se, even though that's what I was doing. I just wanted my voice to be good for acting, which again, it's stupid. Like, don't try to think how any of this makes sense, because it doesn't. It's just a series of stupid, retarded, irrational decisions by me, which is most of what my adult life has been, actually. So yeah, I was doing that, and then um I tried to find some kind of like theater thing near where I lived, but I couldn't find anything good. I did go to like some thing about like signing up for like community theater, but it really sucked. And as clueless as I was, even I can tell that it sucked, so I didn't sign up for that. But yeah, I decided to audition for like a really difficult to get into drama school, like a really prestigious one in Australia. So I like prepared like my monologues and everything and like made a like what must have been the saddest ever resume that they've seen, which had like nothing on it. And yeah, I went to do these like open auditions and I worked really hard on my like monologues. There was one you have to do one Shakespearean one and one contemporary one. I actually thought my actual monologues were pretty good. Maybe I'm delusional, but maybe they were, but yeah. Suffice to say, I didn't like get into this drama school or anything. I hadn't done any acting at all for like fucking years, and it was just like another stupid, pathetic thing I was trying to do. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me. Like, even though I had conquered a lot of that anxiety stuff and like the really bad mental problem stuff, I still had no life skills and I didn't know what was and wasn't realistic and how to make a good decision. And just really wasn't practical at all. And the kind of person that gets into one of those drama schools is someone who's been obsessed with it like since being a kid, not someone who has been having mental problems for years. They're like doing meditation and like monastic life for a long time and then randomly decides to try to get back into it and just prepares a couple monologues and does some stupid singing lessons and shit. So when we did the auditions, we got split into two groups. And I have I have a sneaking suspicion that one group was like the people who they were maybe gonna let in, and the other group was the ones they already decided they definitely weren't gonna let in. And you can guess which group I was in. And yeah, I did my stupid monologues, and then they just basically told me to fuck off. I didn't get to the second round or anything. One person from our whole group of don't know how many people were in our like the whole day of auditions, like the whole time slot of auditions that I was there for. One person got through to the next round out of maybe, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 people. But yeah. So the auditions I did the Shakespearean one I did was from I think it's called Titus Andronicus. It's the evil guy. He's actually supposed to be a black guy or like an Arabic guy. They call them a Moor in Shakespeare. And I like, yeah, changed my voice. Like I tried to make my voice all deep and stuff. I I don't know. I thought it was good. Maybe it fucking sucked. But anyway. And then the other one I did was I forget the name of the play, but it's basically like a crazy guy who is just talking to some other guy in the park. And then I think he kills him at the end. Like he turns out to be like a psycho. He like stabs him or something. And I did like, yeah, a monologue from that. And like I did like a different voice and I did all this like movements and mannerisms for that one, for that monologue. And what they often do is they redirect you to see if you can take direction. And when they redirected me for that one, they got me to just like sit down, just use a normal voice, not have any movement or mannerisms, and just like say the lines. So I did it. And I mean, that was me taking their direction. But I was like, is this what you guys think is good? Because this is really fucking boring. Like, how can you be doing this good or bad? This is just sitting there and saying the words. Like, this is fucking weird. But anyway, yeah. So that was my sad, retarded, pathetic attempt to get back into acting. And yeah, I didn't get into that school or anything. So I was very lost and confused in life. I knew I liked like self-inquiry and meditation. I didn't really know what else I liked. was trying to get back into this acting thing, but, it was really hard and I wasn't really sure about anything. And yeah, even though I wasn't all like anxious and shit anymore, I was still a kind of stupid, retarded person. And I was thinking, what should I do next? Should I keep trying to get back into acting? Should I, try to do a bunch of stuff and audition for like drama school or something again the next year? What should I do? I was really unsure, and the years were going by. I was scraping by, didn't have that much money. I hated this shitty little flat where I lived. I hated my housemate. I hated my shitty job, just like fucking picking flowers on a flower farm. My life wasn't going anywhere. And I was like, fuck, what should I do? So I still didn't really know if it was the right decision or not, but I sent a few feelers out. Like, I can't remember how I contacted them, maybe texted or emailed like my sisters, like my family. I was like, oh, what's it like back home? Who's still living at home? Like, is there a lot of fighting and stuff? Like I was, trying to suss it out. But in the end, I decided I would go back home and I was going to go back to school. I wasn't going to do acting. I was just going to do more kind of like creative writing type stuff. I was going to do a master's degree and then possibly like a doctorate or a PhD. I was going to do more education and try to get a better job and hope something good came of it. So, yeah, that was the end of my adventures of, being in those different places and stuff. I tried to be an adult and move to a different place and make a new life for myself type thing, but it didn't really work out. I ended up pussying out and going back home. So yeah, that's what I did next. And what happened when I got back and whatnot, I'll tell you in the next episode. But yeah, that's a bit more about my life and my crappy adventures, full of bad decisions and social and mental retardation and not a whole lot else. Yeah. So yeah, that's enough for this episode. We'll continue this story in the next one. Thanks heaps for listening. I really appreciate it. Hope you got something out of it. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll talk to you again next time.